The academy cafeteria was never quiet. Hundreds of alien voices blended into a constant storm of sounds, clicks, hums, whistles, and tones that no human throat could ever make. Trays floated through the air on anti-grav rails. Strange foods glowed, steamed, or twitched slightly as students gathered for the midday break. Then everything stopped. Silence fell so suddenly it felt unnatural, like the universe itself had paused to listen. "I don't care what species you are," a human girl said calmly, her voice sharp enough to cut metal. "Touch me again and you'll regret it." All eyes turned toward her. Liv Kaplan stood near one of the long tables, small by most galactic standards. She was only 17, barely over 5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Her uniform was neat. Her hands were steady. Her posture was firm. Across from her stood Grell of the Vexterai. He was massive, nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 thick arms and broad shoulders decorated with crystalline growths, symbols of status among his kind. His gill-like breathing flaps fluttered in amusement as he leaned closer, clearly enjoying the attention. The translator at his throat clicked. Bold words. It said in a flat mechanical tone, "Your species is weak. You only reached the stars because others allowed it." A few nearby students shifted nervously. Humans were still new to the Confederation. Most species did not know what to make of them yet. Grell raised 2 of his arms and shoved Liv lightly in the shoulders. To him, it meant dominance. To Liv, it meant danger. She reacted without thinking. Her hand snapped up and locked around his wrist. She stepped inside his reach, twisted her body, and pulled. Grell's own weight worked against him. In a single smooth motion, Liv flipped the massive alien over her shoulder. The impact shook the floor. Grell crashed onto his back with a sharp, painful sound as several of his crystal markers shattered against the hard surface. Gasps erupted across the cafeteria. Some students screamed. Others stared in shock. Pain did not need translation. Liv stood over him, breathing evenly. Her uniform was untouched. Her expression was calm. "You were saying something about humans being weak?" she asked. Security drones immediately activated, lights flashing as they hovered closer. Grell lay stunned, his gill flaps spasming in embarrassment and pain. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Humanity had joined the Galactic Confederation only 27 years earlier. In galactic terms, that was nothing. Most species had explored space for thousands of years. Humans were newcomers, watched closely, judged constantly. Earth itself made others uneasy. By Confederation standards, it was classified as a Class 12 death world. High gravity, unstable climate, violent weather, a biosphere full of predators, diseases, and environmental hazards. Yet humans had not only survived, they had flourished. That fact disturbed the galaxy. Liv Kaplan was one of 15 human students allowed into the Galactic Confederation Academy. The program was labeled probationary, which meant any mistake could cost humanity its place. Liv knew this. She also knew Grell had been harassing her for weeks. "Kaplan." The voice cut through the chaos. Vice Principal Zakatral stood near the entrance, his tall Algorian form rigid with authority. His skin shifted colors, signaling irritation. "My office. Now." Liv stepped back from Grell as medical staff rushed in. She straightened her jacket and walked away, ignoring the dozens of alien eyes following her. The hallway felt longer than usual. Students whispered as she passed. Some looked afraid, others impressed. Most simply looked confused. Inside the vice principal's office, the air felt heavy. "This is the 3rd incident involving you," Zakatral said, settling behind his desk. "Do you understand what is at risk?" "Yes, sir," Liv replied. "You represent more than yourself," he continued. "Every action you take reflects on your entire species." Liv clenched her jaw. "With respect, sir, I was defending myself." Zakatral's skin shifted uneasily. "To many species here, your response looked excessive. Then maybe they should stop putting their hands on people." Liv said quietly. The vice principal studied her for a long moment. "Leave," he finally said. "We will discuss this further." Liv escaped to the Academy's Arboretum, a quiet place filled with plants from 100 different worlds. She collapsed onto a bench beneath a glowing tree and let out a slow breath. That, a voice said from above, was beautiful. Liv jumped. Morgan dropped down from the branches with effortless grace. Tall, copper-skinned, and smiling wide, her galaxy-like eyes sparkled with excitement. "You flipped a Vexter eye," Morgan continued. "In public." Liv groaned. "I'm going to be in so much trouble." Morgan laughed softly. "Maybe," she said, "but now everyone knows one thing." Liv looked up at her. "Humans," Morgan finished, "are not harmless." The galaxy had just learned its first real lesson about Earth, and it would not be the last. Liv Kaplan did not sleep well that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Grell's body hitting the cafeteria floor. Not the impact, but the look on his face just before it happened. Shock, disbelief. The moment he realized the small human in front of him was not prey. Morning came too quickly. The academy halls buzzed with quiet tension as Liv walked her first class. Conversation stopped when she passed. Some students stepped aside. Others stared openly. A few nodded with something that looked like respect. Humans were still new here, but now they were noticed. Morgan walked beside Liv, hands folded behind her back. Posture relaxed as always. "You're officially famous," she said lightly. "I heard 3 different versions of the story before breakfast." Liv sighed. "Let me guess. I shattered his spine." "Twice," Morgan replied, "and then threatened his entire bloodline." Liv groaned. "Great." They entered comparative xenobiology, a lecture hall filled with students from dozens of species. Liv felt the weight of attention immediately. Eyes, too many types to count, followed her as she took her seat. Grell was already there. He sat in the back row with 2 other Vexterized students. The broken crystal markers on his shoulders had been sealed with protective caps. He didn't look at Liv, but his gill flaps fluttered in restrained anger. "This isn't over," Morgan murmured quietly. Liv nodded. She already knew. Professor Thaxic entered the room, her insect-like form moving quickly to the front. "Today," she said, "we discuss survival adaptations among sentient species." Liv had a bad feeling. The professor activated a hologram of the human body. Bones, muscles, organs layered in glowing detail. "Humans," Thaxic continued, "are unusual. They evolved redundancy." A hand rose in the front row. "Redundancy?" "Yes," the professor said eagerly. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, a liver capable of regrowth, pain receptors that encourage persistence rather than shut down under stress. Whispers spread through the room. "They evolved expecting damage," Thaxic added. Liv sank lower in her seat. "And their adrenal response," the professor continued, "is extreme. Under threat, humans gain temporary increases in strength, speed, and pain tolerance while maintaining cognitive control." A student whispered, "They get stronger when scared?" "In simple terms," Thaxic replied, "yes." From the back of the room came a sharp, clicking sound. Grell stood. "With respect, Professor," his translator said smoothly, "that theory seems exaggerated. My personal experience suggests humans are manageable." The room went silent. Thaxic's eyes focused sharply. "Ah, the cafeteria incident." Liv felt every gaze snap toward her. "Student Kaplan," the professor said, "please stand." Liv stood, heart pounding. "Yesterday's encounter," Thaxic continued, "was not an example of raw strength. It was technique. Humans developed structured combat systems designed for smaller individuals to defeat larger opponents using leverage and momentum." Grell's gills flared. "Are you saying my defeat was inevitable?" "No," Thaxic replied calmly. "I am saying it was predictable." The words hung heavy in the air. "Humans," the professor concluded, "are classified as a low-tier technological civilization, but biologically," she paused, letting the moment stretch, "they are apex survivors from a Class 12 death world." Liv sat down slowly. The room felt different after that. The summons came later that afternoon. Mandatory attendance. Conference room Theta. Terran consulate and Vexteride delegation present. Liv's stomach tightened. They're escalating, Morgan said quietly. That's not a school meeting. That's politics. Conference room Theta was designed for diplomacy, not comfort. Adjustable gravity. Neutral air. Seating arranged to prevent any species from feeling dominant. Liv entered last. Vice Principal Zacatral sat at the head. 2 Vexteride diplomats sat to one side, one of them Grell's father. Across from them sat the Terran ambassador, and beside her, Dad, Liv whispered. Dr. David Kaplan met her eyes and gave a small, steady nod. The meeting began. The human cadet assaulted my son, the Vexteride diplomat stated coldly. Liv felt something press warm against her leg, inside her pocket. Morgan's truth stone. It glowed faintly. Security footage shows physical contact initiated by Cadet Grell. The Terran ambassador replied calmly. A cultural gesture, the Vexterai insisted. The stone burned hot. Lie. Liv took a breath. Permission to speak, she said suddenly. The room froze. Zacatral hesitated, then nodded. This isn't about the cafeteria, Liv said evenly. This is about the upcoming Confederation vote on humanity's status. The Vexteride diplomat stiffened. Silence fell like a blade. You buried my harassment reports, Liv continued. You provoked a public incident, and now you're using it as leverage. The truth stone flared bright. Her father leaned forward. I request a neutral review. The Terran ambassador nodded. Agreed. The Vexteride delegation realized it too late. They had pushed too far, and humanity, once again, had drawn a line. When Liv left the room, her hands were shaking. Morgan waited outside, smiling faintly. You didn't just defend yourself, she said. You defended your species. Liv exhaled slowly. Then this really isn't over, she said. Morgan's eyes glittered. No, she replied. It's just beginning. The announcement reached the entire academy before sunset. Mandatory assembly. Grand Hall. Purpose. Formal resolution of the cafeteria incident. Liv Kaplan stared at the message on her wrist display, her jaw tight. They want a public apology, she said. Morgan leaned against the wall of their dorm room, arms crossed. Of course they do. Public humiliation is a universal language. I can't apologize for defending myself. You won't, Morgan replied calmly. You'll apologize for exactly what you're required to. Liv looked at her. And nothing more? Morgan's lips curved into a knowing smile. And nothing less. The grand hall was packed. Students filled to rising tiers, their diverse forms creating a living mosaic of colors, textures, and shifting lights. Diplomats sat in reserved sections near the front. Security hovered quietly above. Liv stood backstage, hands clenched, heart pounding. Her parents were in the audience. Her father looked calm. Her mother looked ready to start a war. Vice Principal Zacatral approached. His skin shimmered with anxiety. Cadet Kaplan, remember the agreement. Acknowledge the damage. Avoid inflammatory statements. Liv nodded. Of course, sir. He hesitated. Your prepared remarks push boundaries. Respectfully, Liv said, So do I. Zacatral sighed. Begin. Liv stepped onto the stage. The noise died instantly. She moved to the podium, adjusted it to her height, and took a breath. Esteemed faculty, honored delegates, fellow cadets, she began. I am here to address the incident involving myself and Cadet Grell. She paused. During that incident, my defensive action resulted in damage to Cadet Grell's crystalline status markers. For that specific damage, I offer a formal apology. A ripple moved through the Vexterai section. Satisfaction, Liv continued. Cultural symbols matter. Their destruction, even during self-defense, is regrettable. She let the words settle. However, she said, her voice steady, this event revealed a deeper misunderstanding, one that affects every species represented here. The hall grew silent. Humans evolved on Earth, a Class 12 death world. That classification is not an insult or a boast. It is a fact. A hologram activated behind her, displaying Earth, storms, shifting plates, predators. Our world shaped us to recognize threats quickly, Liv continued. because hesitation meant death. She looked directly at the audience. When physical boundaries are crossed, our bodies respond automatically, not with anger, with survival. Grell shifted in his seat. This is not an excuse, Liv said. It is an explanation. She straightened. Humans do not seek conflict, but we will not accept being touched, cornered, or intimidated. Consent is not optional for us. It is biological. A murmur spread through the hall. My apology today is precise, Liv said. I regret the damage caused. I do not regret protecting myself. The Vexteride delegation stiffened. This is not a threat, Liv added calmly. It is a boundary. She stepped back from the podium. For true cooperation, respect must go both ways. Silence followed. Then, slowly, applause began. Not from everyone, but from enough. Backstage, Zachatrol looked like he had aged a decade. That fulfilled the agreement, he said carefully. Yes, sir, Liv replied, and destabilized 3 delegations. She smiled faintly. Also, yes, sir. The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, human students noticed changes. No more casual shoves. No mocking comments. No crowding. Distance appeared instead, not fear, but caution. Congratulations, Morgan said later in the Arboretum. You've upgraded humanity's reputation. Liv groaned. I think I started something. Morgan nodded. You did. 2 days later, Liv received another summons. This time, it wasn't from the Academy. It was from the Galactic Confederation Council. Her mother's message was short. They want you present. Vote moved up. Liv stared at the words. They're using me as an example, she whispered. Morgan's eyes glittered. No, they're realizing you already are one. The council chamber dwarfed the Grand Hall. Species from across the galaxy filled the concentric rings. Earth's delegation sat closer to the center than before. The Vexterai spoke first. They showed the cafeteria footage. They called humans unstable. They called Liv dangerous. Then the Archerns rose and defended her. They spoke of context, of survival worlds, of boundaries. The room divided. Then the chairperson spoke. Cadet Kaplan, the Algorian announced. You may address the council. Liv froze. Her mother whispered, You don't have to. Liv stood anyway. I am not a diplomat, Liv said from the podium. I'm a student. But I represent a species shaped by danger. She met Tequil's gaze. We are not asking the galaxy to fear us. She paused. We are asking to understand us. Silence followed. Then the council moved to vote. As Liv returned to her seat, her hands shook. Morgan wasn't there, but her voice echoed in Liv's mind. Perception matters. And today, the galaxy was finally seeing humans clearly. The Galactic Confederation Council chamber felt colder than the Academy halls. Liv Kaplan stood at the central podium, surrounded by beings who had shaped galactic history long before humans learned how to leave their atmosphere. The scale of the room was meant to intimidate. High ceilings, ancient materials, and lighting adjusted to no single species' comfort. It was working. The Vexterai delegation finished speaking, their words sharp and polished. According to them, humans were impulsive, dangerous, and not ready for full membership. Liv's image froze mid-throw on the holographic display behind them. A perfect moment of chaos captured forever. When they sat down, the silence was heavy. Then an Arcturon delegate rose slowly. We reviewed the full context. The Arcturon said, not edited footage, not selective testimony. All of it. The image shifted to show Grell shoving Liv. This, the delegate continued, is not social bonding. It is intimidation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Humans reacted according to survival protocols consistent with Death World evolution. The Arcturon finished, punishing that response would demonstrate ignorance, not wisdom. Liv felt her chest tighten. The Algorian chairperson's skin shifted to a neutral pattern. Cadet Kaplan, he said, you have already spoken once. Are you prepared to address the council again? Liv swallowed. She nodded. I don't expect you to agree with each other. Liv began. If you did, this council wouldn't exist. A few delegates shifted in interest. I grew up knowing Earth could kill me, she continued. Weather, disease, animals, even my own mistakes. That didn't make us violent. It made us careful. She glanced at the vectorized seats. When someone touches a human without consent, our body doesn't debate culture. It reacts. She took a breath. That doesn't mean we reject diplomacy. It means diplomacy must include boundaries. Liv straightened. We joined the Confederation because we believe cooperation is stronger than isolation. But cooperation does not mean submission. Her voice remained calm. It means mutual respect. She stepped back. The council did not respond immediately. Delegations conferred in quiet clusters, lights flashing, scents shifting, translators humming. Liv returned to her seat beside her mother, heart pounding. You did well, her mother whispered. I might have ruined everything, Liv replied. Her mother squeezed her hand. Or you changed it. The vote followed. One by one, delegations cast their decision. Support, abstain. Support, opposition came mostly from the Vexterai and their closest allies. But it wasn't enough. The chairperson stood. By council majority, he announced, Earth's probationary status will be lifted. Humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Confederation. For a moment, Liv couldn't breathe. Then the chamber erupted. Human delegates applauded openly. Others signaled approval in alien ways. Light pulses, wing flutters, rhythmic tapping. Even species that had abstained watched with renewed curiosity. The Vexterai sat rigid and silent. Liv felt something shift deep inside her. Humanity had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The days that followed felt unreal. News networks replayed Liv's speech across the Confederation. Analysts debated death world biology. Universities requested human exchange programs. Military theorists quietly adjusted simulations. At the Academy, things changed. Humans were no longer ignored. They were studied, respected, avoided, sometimes, but never dismissed. One evening, Liv sat in the arboretum with Morgan, watching glowing leaves drift through artificial air currents. You realize what you did, Morgan said. I survived, Liv replied. Morgan smiled. You redefine how the galaxy sees your species. Liv leaned back. That wasn't my goal. Doesn't matter, Morgan said softly. History rarely asks permission. A message arrived on Liv's communicator. Confederation Cultural Liaison Program. Invitation pending. She stared at it. They want me, Liv said quietly. Morgan nodded. Of course they do. I'm just a student. Morgan's galaxy-bright eyes met hers. So was every species' first representative. Across campus, Grell watched from a distance. He didn't approach. He didn't threaten. He simply turned away, not in fear, in recognition. Liv exhaled. Humanity wasn't feared. It wasn't worshipped. It was understood. And that, she realized, was far more powerful. Full membership changed everything. Liv Kaplan felt at the moment she stepped into the academy halls the next morning. The air itself seemed different, not physically, but socially. Conversations didn't stop anymore when humans walked by. Instead, students watched with open interest, not curiosity. Assessment. Humans were no longer the new kids. They were a known factor. You look like someone who accidentally started a historical movement, Morgan said as she joined Liv at breakfast. Liv poked at her food. I just wanted people to stop touching me. Morgan smiled. Be careful what you wish for. Requests came quickly. Professors invited Liv to panels. Cultural committees asked her to share human perspectives. Security advisors wanted her input on Death World conflict response training. She declined most of them. I didn't sign up to be a symbol, Liv told her mother over a late-night call. Her mother's image flickered on the screen, eyes tired but proud. Symbols don't volunteer, she said gently. They appear when history needs them. That's comforting, Liv muttered. The academy adapted. New guidelines were issued. Clear rules about physical contact. updated orientation briefings on Death World species. It wasn't just about humans. Other Death World students, species long dismissed as aggressive or unstable, found themselves treated differently. With caution, yes, but also respect. Morgan noticed first. The Shendari stopped apologizing for their claws, she said one afternoon, and the Bracken are no longer required to wear suppressors during class. Liv frowned. Because of me? Because you reminded the galaxy that survival shapes behavior, Morgan replied. Not everyone approved. The Vexteride delegation filed formal objections. Editorials warned about biological threats in diplomatic spaces. Rumors spread quietly about containment protocols and security reviews. Liv heard them all. You'll always scare someone, her father said calmly. That's the cost of existing outside expectations. Grell avoided her completely. When their paths crossed, he looked away. Once, weeks later, Liv found him alone in a side corridor, crystal caps finally removed. New growths had begun forming, smaller, uneven. He stiffened when he saw her. I won't touch you, he said quickly, his translator sharp with tension. I didn't ask you to, Liv replied. Silence stretched between them. You humiliated me, Grell said finally. You tried to intimidate me, Liv answered. He didn't deny it. After a long moment, Grell inclined his head slightly, a Vexteride gesture of acknowledgement. Then he walked away. Liv exhaled slowly. That, she realized, was resolution. The invitation became official a week later. Confederation Cultural Liaison Program. Acceptance confirmed. Liv stared at the message for a long time. Morgan leaned over her shoulder. That's not a request. I know. They want you to help define first contact behavior, moving forward. I'm 17. Morgan grinned. And terrifyingly effective. The first session was held virtually. Delegates from 23 species attended. Some were curious, others skeptical, a few openly wary. Liv spoke plainly. She talked about Earth's dangers, about reflexes shaped by survival, about why humans value consent, space, and clear boundaries. She also talked about kindness, about cooperation, about how humans built communities to survive environments that should have killed them. By the end, questions replaced accusations. How should we greet humans? What gestures are unsafe? What signals de-escalation? Liv answered carefully. Later that night, she sat alone under the glowing trees of the arboretum. Morgan joined her quietly. You did well, Morgan said. I'm tired, Liv replied. Morgan nodded. That doesn't stop you from maturing. Liv looked up at the artificial stars overhead. I never wanted power. Morgan smiled softly. Neither did the first firekeepers or toolmakers or explorers. She paused. But the galaxy notices who survives impossible worlds. Across the Confederation, policies shifted. Humans were reclassified, not as fragile newcomers, but as high-resilience partners. Military planners adjusted assumptions. Diplomats updated protocols. Scholars rewrote textbooks. Earth was no longer an anomaly. It was a lesson. Liv received one final message that night. From the council chairperson himself. Cadet Kaplan, your actions demonstrate restraint, clarity, and strength. These qualities will shape future Confederation policy. Humanity's place among the stars is no longer in question. Liv closed the message and leaned back. Morgan nudged her gently. How does it feel? Liv thought for a moment. Like being seen, she said. Morgan's eyes glimmered. That's the most dangerous thing of all. The galaxy did not change overnight. That was the first lesson Liv Kaplan learned after everything settled. There were no sudden alliances, no dramatic celebrations across star systems, no instant trust. What changed instead was something slower, deeper, and far more permanent. Humans were now considered. At the academy, this showed itself in small ways. Instructors paused before making assumptions. Students asked questions instead of making jokes. Hands stayed to themselves. Liv returned to classes, to exams, to long study nights. Life moved forward, even if history had quietly shifted around her. You look almost normal again, Morgan said one afternoon as they walked through the arboretum. High praise, Liv replied dryly. Morgan smiled. Enjoy it while it lasts. The Confederation Cultural Liaison Program expanded quickly. Human representatives were requested on frontier stations, diplomatic vessels, and mixed-species colonies, not as enforcers, not as threats, as anchors. Where humans went, protocols became clearer, boundaries were respected, conflicts de-escalated faster. It surprised many. They expected us to be aggressive, Liv told her father during a call. But what they're actually afraid of is how controlled we are. Her father nodded. Discipline scares people more than rage. Months passed. The cafeteria incident became a case study, not about violence, about restraint. Academies across the Confederation began teaching a new concept, contextual self-defense, using human examples. Not how to fight, but when not to. Liv watched a lecture recording one night where a professor said, humans do not seek dominance. They seek safety. If you remove the threat, you remove the reaction. She smiled faintly. Grell transferred academies. The official reason cited personal growth opportunities. The unofficial truth was simpler. The environment had changed, and he no longer held the advantage. Liv felt no triumph, only closure. The real test came unexpectedly. A border dispute between two minor species escalated on a joint research station. Accusations, shoving, security teams on edge. A human cultural liaison was present. Liv watched the recording later. The human didn't raise their voice, didn't threaten, didn't move aggressively. They stood between both parties. Hands open, feet planted, voice calm. Stop, the human said. This doesn't need to become something you can't undo. The room fell quiet. The conflict ended. The report labeled the intervention decisive without force. Liv leaned back in her chair, heart heavy with pride. Near the end of the term, Liv stood once more before the council, not as a defendant, but as a witness to progress. The Algorian chairperson addressed her directly. Cadet Kaplan, do humans fear the galaxy now understands them? Liv considered the question. No, she said. Understanding reduces fear. It doesn't increase it. And if that understanding leads to caution, Liv met his gaze. Then it's earned. A ripple of approval moved through the chamber. Graduation approached. Liv stood on the academy balcony one night, looking out at a sky filled with stars that no longer felt distant. Morgan joined her, quiet as ever. You changed the narrative, Morgan said. Liv shook her head. Humanity did. I just stood in the way long enough for people to notice. Morgan laughed softly. That might be the most human answer possible. Back on Earth, children watched clips of Liv's speeches in classrooms, not as propaganda, as lessons about boundaries, about strength without cruelty, about surviving hard worlds without becoming hard inside. The galaxy had expected conquerors. What it found instead were guardians of restraint. On her last night at the academy, Liv packed her things slowly. She paused, looking at the uniform folded neatly on her bed, a simple garment. No weapons, no symbols of dominance, just a human standing among the stars. Her communicator chimed one final time. Confederation status update. Humanity, trusted partner species. Liv closed her eyes. Not feared, not worshipped. Trusted, that was enough. As Liv stepped onto the transport platform, Morgan squeezed her hand. The galaxy won't forget this, Morgan said. Liv smiled, steady and calm. Good, she replied. Neither will we. And somewhere beyond the stars, the universe adjusted, quietly, to a species that proved true strength did not come from domination, but from knowing exactly when not to strike.